On this channel, we talk about the hoax of black victimization, the greatest hoax of our lifetime. Black victimization, white racism. But if you're going to have a great hoax, the greatest of our lifetime, that has to be supported by a lot of little lies, a lot of little hoaxes. There's sometimes big hoaxes to support that. And we talk about that here a whole lot, especially the crime numbers. So we know that black crime and violence and dysfunction is wildly out of proportion no matter how you measure it. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if you're measuring crime, lifestyle, health, It's the black stuff is just off the charts in every direction you don't want to go in. But one of the things we know from looking at the crime numbers is that as bad as they are, and they're as bad as you can imagine, whatever crime you pick, 3 times, 5 times, 10 times, 1,000, 2,000 times greater, the black crime rate versus the white crime rate. However bad those numbers are, the real numbers are worse. And anybody who's been on this channel for a while knows we talk about witness intimidation. We talk about stitches for snitches. We talk about Bronx juries. We talk about cops not arresting our way out of this mess. And so these are all cons that keep the numbers down, artificially down. But to me, the most disappointing con, the most disappointing stuff we run into where we're keeping the crime numbers down to make it think that black criminality is not really as big as it is, as wildly out of proportion as it is. It comes from the police department and the police statistics. We've done this story in cities all over the country, and I don't really know that anybody beside us has done more stories than this. We're going to see a story in a minute that the great Dallas brought to my attention, a story out of Washington, D.C., where they're fudging the numbers, all to make it seem like Washington, D.C. is a lot safer than it really is. And so what they do is they do all these things, they crunch the numbers down, they don't arrest people, or if they arrest you for something, maybe they'll reduce the charges on it. Like, for example, my neighbor 2 blocks down from my house, she called me a few months ago. A lovely lady living on her block came on her porch, punched her in the face 25 times. A, the cops didn't want to take a report. B, they didn't want to arrest her. And C, when they arrested her and charged her, they charged this woman who beat the crap out of my neighbor, an elderly woman, punching her 25 times on her porch. They charged her with offensive touching, and she got 1 year probation. And so the cops are cooking the books all over the country, and anybody who knows anything about it knows that's a thing. Hell, the people who write the movie, TV show Blue Bloods, they even had an episode on it. Tom Selleck caught somebody cooking the books. He fired them. Well, cooking the books is an old tradition in New York City, too. We covered this in Don't Make the Black Kids Angry at length. Big front page story in the New York Times. Police tactics keeping crime reports off the books. And they got into lots of detail about people are going, yeah, I just got burglarized, or I got assaulted, or this happened, and that happened. The cops show up, and they basically say, listen, lady, we're never going to catch this guy, so why bother filing a report? No report, no crime. The godparents of this whole genre, really, the people that did the most work on it, were the people over at Chicago Magazine, when the crime numbers in Chicago were so filled with unreality. Chicago Magazine did a 3-part story, The Truth About Chicago's Crime Rates. And here's the headline: the city's drop in crime rates has been nothing short of miraculous. Then in this 3-part series, they show you how they cooked the books in Chicago. We've done a lot of stories with that in Chicago, especially around Obama's neighborhood in Hyde Park when he was president. And other stories like we've done stories in Atlanta, how a large group of the fellas rampaged through a film festival, beating the hell out of gay people, no crime reports, no hate crimes. Baltimore, Philly, Los Angeles. It got so bad in New Orleans that the state had to come down and take over the crime reporting in New Orleans just because the crime numbers were so unreliable. The city officials wanted to bury these crime numbers so people would not know what a truly dark and dirty and dangerous chocolate city New Orleans really is. But it's hard, but until today, we never really caught them being confronted with that, cooking the books, and just denying it, even in the face of this reality. And we caught them doing it in New York. So in the last month or so, you've been watching some B-roll here of attacks on cops in New York City. Now, in New York City, everybody's down with the fact that crime is down. Well, it's down because they're just not arresting people, as the New York Times documented. But in the last month, it's got even worse because after the commissioner fired that Officer Pantaleo, the guy who was involved with the death of Eric Garner, the cops basically went on a slowdown. They stopped arresting. They stopped doing traffic tickets. They stopped doing this kind of arrest, that kind of arrest. You know, if every cop went on vacation tomorrow, what would the crime rate be? Dallas, what would the crime rate be?
If they went on vacation?
Tomorrow. That's okay.
Apocalypse.
No. You say, you normally can't get Dallas on this kind of question, but I just got him. What would the crime rate be if every cop in America took a vacation tomorrow? The crime rate would plunge to zero, since there would be no crime reports. And that's what happened in New York. The mayor got asked about it on public radio in New York the other day, and even he could barely get out of it.
Before you go, let me ask you about August crime numbers and police activity. Commissioner O'Neill says there were 91 shootings in the city last month, an increase of 20% compared to August of last year. He also says since he fired Daniel Pantaleo on August 19th for his chokehold on Eric Garner, felony arrests are down 11%, misdemeanor arrests are down 18%, moving violations for illegal driving, not good for cyclist safety or pedestrian safety, are down 32%, moving violations. Is there a relationship between the increase in shootings and police officers protesting, if that's what it is, through a kind of work slowdown?
No, I don't think so at all. The most important fact about the month of August 2019 is crime is down compared to August a year ago. That's the fact that was displayed in great detail on Wednesday. So crime is down.
The video is disturbing. An NYPD cop getting beamed in the head by a bucket. Cops were making an arrest when a bunch of young men started dousing them with water. Then someone launched the red bucket, hitting the officer. The humiliation was intense, but the cops carried on doing their job.
Oh my God.
That's not all. Another video in Brooklyn shows two cops getting drenched.
Oh, they not stopping! Oh my God!
Look what they do to this police officer.
But despite the mayor's wishful thinking, there's something weird happening on the streets of New York. And if you look at the crime numbers, it doesn't seem that way. But if you look at this disrespect, this violence, these threats, these assaults against cops and citizens are going off the charts. We just saw a video there where a woman was reporting a crime against a bunch of fellas. And all of a sudden, the fella sees what she's doing. The fellas start assaulting her and threatening her with water, and they're threatening and laughing. The woman's begging for help from the cops in the car. The cops won't get out of the car. The cops know the drill. We don't want to go around arresting fellas around here unless there's blood on the streets. Keep the numbers down. Well, the word is out that something strange is happening in New York City. Of course, we can always count on our buddies over at Slate and Salon to look at this ridiculous level of anarchy and danger and flip it on its head and say, no. It's okay the cops walked away. It's okay to let people have enormous disrespect for cops because that's actually made our cities safer. Yeah, we need to cool down about police officers getting doused with water. No, I'll tell you something. Cops all over the country see these videos, they see these stories. They know how dangerous it is if people lose respect for the cops. It's not just dangerous for the cops, it's dangerous for you. Do I have to tell you that? I don't like talking about the obvious around here, but that's obvious. So don't make the black kids angry. We did tons and tons of story of how cops are cooking the books all over the country and then raising their hands and doing the Rocky victory dance. Good old Dallas, one of our more careful and devoted viewers and listeners on our podcast as well, he reminded me of this story that was down in Washington, D.C. just a few months ago. And I like this story because this is the same. This story you could do in New York, Philly, Baltimore, Boston. Just go around, just take a magical mystery tour. Chicago, St. Louis, Kansas City, New Orleans, Los Angeles, Seattle, Portland. lots and lots of places in between.
An exclusive Fox 5 investigation exposing new allegations that the crime reports in the district are skewing the numbers. A whistleblower speaks out for the first time about how D.C. police officers on the street are being asked by higher ranks to dumb down felony crimes to misdemeanors and in some cases to just incidents.
But if you look closely at D.C. police crime stats, you'll see violent crimes like robberies and shootings continue to shrink in number. But are those really the facts?
They want to keep statistics there.
This veteran MPD officer is disguising his identity to protect his job, but is blowing the whistle on what he calls years of corruption and crime reclassification by the Metropolitan Police Department.
If it's a burglary, but if it's a burglary where someone entered the home, but nothing was taken or anything, they have us reclassified to like an unlawful entry, which brings it down from a felony to a misdemeanor.
Felonies are reported to the FBI. The Uniform Crime Report compiles the statistics, providing a national barometer of violent crime for the record.
How do you not investigate someone who's been shot?
Because what they do is, if the victim is uncooperative, don't want to give up any information, they'll make it the injured person to the hospital.
Which is an incident and not a crime?
Exactly.
A search of D.C. police reports for a 19-month period up to April of 2018 showed MPD had taken nearly 3,000 reports for injured person to hospital. Of those reports, 61 were for gunshot wounds. Only 11 were self-inflicted. But the classification infers no crime has been committed. Yet in some cases, there are shell casings that cover the street. In others, victims telling police they've been shot by someone else. But because the shooting is now listed as an incident instead of a crime, many times this officer says the investigation ends there.
You, on scenes, have been told to reclassify crimes, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I've been on the scene, I know what it is. But they say, no, we're going to make it this. And, you know, we look at that one another like, wow. Like, okay.
And you reclassify it?
Yeah. There's no need to get no discipline over that, so you just go ahead and reclassify it.
Have you been told, in your experience, by white shirts, hey, listen, don't do that as a felony. Make it something else?
Oh, lots of times.
What's your experience with the white shirts? Do you think there's a lot of people under pressure to cook the numbers?
Oh, most definitely. There's no question about that.
Common examples of crime reclassification provided were assault with a dangerous weapon gun, dumbed down to injured person to hospital, or robbery, force, and violence to simple assault theft, burglary to unlawful entry, and carjackings to theft once stolen auto, which is technically still a felony but classified as a property crime, a classification not reflected in the violent crime reports. Fox 5 first reported D.C. Council Chairman Phil Mendelson's girlfriend was carjacked this past July, just minutes away from Barracks Row and Eastern Market in Southeast. D.C. officers on a private Facebook forum joked about the classification and how the charge would have been watered down had it happened to any other citizen. So what happens now? Who is telling the truth? And is this systemic corruption?
You know, in a crazy way, I don't blame the people who run these departments for doing everything they can. They're just following orders. And that city councilman in Washington, D.C., pretending he didn't know nothing about nothing. Everybody knows they're playing this game around the country. Everybody knows they're ordered to play that game.
Please, sir. I want some more.
Well, so this crazy-ass politician can go around the neighborhoods going, crime is down. Hey, there's a lot of stuff going on in our neighborhoods. Don't worry about it. Crime is down. How many times have we seen that here? And now this guy's pretending like he doesn't know anything about anything. Wow. Believe me, in the police literature, at the police conferences, this is what people talk about. And for him to pretend not to know, is he's not talking to one cop? Apparently not. Because if he were, he'd know the numbers are meaningless as to the level of black criminality and violence in his city of Washington, D.C. But I'll tell you one thing he does know, keeping those numbers way, way lower than they really are, telling little fairy tales about how safe Washington, D.C. is because we cook the books as well as anybody in America, that will not make the black kids angry.
So angry. Don't get the black kids angry.